morning, everyone. I really appreciate Ripon Society organizing this dialogue, as I may call it, with all people from the industry. I think that I was telling some of the folks here that I was elected in November, and I've been tested more than any other one with the financial crisis, medical cliff, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria, tax reform, and I don't want to continue because I get tired of it. But it's been a challenging time for Puerto Rico during this 2 years, and actually the last 42 days. And first of all, I want to thank my colleagues in the House for all the help, all the support that they've been giving me during the last year. Because since day one, they've been in the upfront, helping me out, drafting bills, supporting, even creating a caucus for Puerto Rico economic development in the island. And actually, you're looking at two of the co-chairs of that task force that we created during this year. What can I add to that? First of all, I was there during the hurricane, not during Irma, but during Maria. We never experienced a hurricane like that before, and it's so difficult to actually explain how you need to do. I mean, I was having a lot of water inside my house, so as any other people, else in Puerto Rico, I was taking the water out until one time I said, I need to hide. So when you need to hold your door for 1 hour, then you get tired. You said, whatever is going to happen, I was with my brother, so we hide in the closet for the rest of the hurricane. It was not 1 hour, it was not 2 hours, it was more than 9 hours steady having a hurricane hitting your door. It was frightening. Well, guess what? We need to move on. And we still have more than 70% of the island without power. That's a challenge. I don't recommend anyone to experience that. 29% of the people is without running water. So 20% of the people is without access to networks. And why is those numbers so important is every day is a different challenge. So during the first, the whole island was without power, without running water, without access to the ports, without access to the airports. So when you are living in an island and you can't have commodities, water, gasoline, diesel, power, I mean, those things were a luxury during the first 2 weeks after the hurricane. But still, in some areas, I actually don't have power in my house. So having said that, the challenge after the hurricane is going to be how are we going to recover from this in terms of our economy? How Congress may step in, making a few changes that we need in order to manage this financial situation. It's like the perfect storm. Financial crisis, medical cliff, Irma, Maria. And we're still not done during the hurricane season that is going to finish on December 15th. So one of the main issues and the main challenge that I've been speaking with my colleagues in the House is that we need to change some of the statutes, not to repair the current infrastructure, but actually rebuild it. Not to the 1950s, not to the 1960s standards, like they are right now, but actually looking forward with underground, with concrete poles instead of wooden poles that FEMA is actually using right now. Because we're going to be hit again. We don't want that, but that's the reality. You're living in the Caribbean, and it's not the climate change. So having said that, we need to establish a more easy, quicker way to reestablish our economy. Because for most of you, I know we hear a lot of people from the industry. Puerto Rico's main source of income is not tourism, it's manufacturing. And that manufacturing is divided by pharmaceutical, medical devices, electronics, computers, and that means you have zero revenue because no power is in the island. that already weakened economy is going to get worse. And that's the reason you're seeing that 1,000 Puerto Ricans are leaving the island daily. So right now, I just spoke with the governor of Florida, Scott, and he just told me that there were more than 84,000 Puerto Ricans that left Puerto Rico during these 42 days. 84,000. That's people who are workers, people who actually are part of our tax base, and of course you got different people who came out because of illness or elderly or even students. As a matter of fact, we haven't resumed the student classes in Puerto Rico to 100% yet because we're still using 72 schools as shelters for more than 30,000 people that are still as refugees in those areas. Being included in the tax reform, it's important for us. I think these guys that are here, and I want to recognize also my friend French Hill and Lloyd Smoker, both have been in the island. Actually, all of them have been in the island during the last year and more recently. We need to be included on those provisions because every time a territory is out of the tax code, we need to have amendments and we need to fight. Instead of focusing on having the greater things, we still focus on how to maintain whatever we got there instead of expanding and improvising, improving, I say, our economy. And one of those issues is that we need to protect the manufacturing industry in the island. For that, we need to have a power grid that actually can provide a service. We can't. You get PREPA under Title III of bankruptcy on the island. Thanks God, the Oversight Board now is filing to be in charge of the PREPA, so that could mean that finally we're going to have the private sector not only investing, but taking charge, as it should be. And that's one of the challenges. It's not all of them, it's one of the challenges. In terms of having more exports, I don't know if you're aware of what the FDA commissioner just told a week ago to one of the committees in the House, the importance that the 10% of all manufacturing products in the U.S. are made in Puerto Rico. And that means that you get pharma plants, medical device plants, and more than 78,000 jobs that are being on the island, American jobs. And it's part of the 33% of our tax base. When you get hit by a hurricane like this and you can't recover power, all those companies still thinking if they're going to remain on the island or they're going to leave. Because the rest of the world continue working. We are the ones behind. So we got a lot of challenge. Of 68 hospitals, 66 are working, 20 of them with generators. I know many people have been asking about if the federal response has been right or not. I will tell you this: I don't want the people of Puerto Rico to be taken as a tool to hit or smash an administration. The reality is we've been receiving funds, we've been receiving help, but we're still shy on those areas. I think that the Corps of Engineers was given 3 tasks: recover the power grid, installing blue tarps, and installing temporary bridges. And they're being slow in all of those 3. I think that's the main concern. But the rest of the agencies have been doing a wonderful job. I don't know what else you want me for an introduction, but I know this is a time for the private sector. This is a time for Congress to, again, step in. And actually, this House of Representatives was the first responder in February when we allocated $296 million in downloads for the Medicaid cliff. And now, recently, twice, relief funds in Hurricane Irma, relief funds in Hurricane Maria, and even yesterday, allocated $1 billion from Medicaid that is going to be recommended to the House. So Congress is doing their part. We need now the government of Puerto Rico, and of course that is doing their part to work with the private sector in terms of improving our economy and actually giving confidence of what investment is going to be happening in the island during the next months. Thank you for that. I don't know how.
No.
Yeah.
You want to make comments from there?
Thank you, Jennifer, and for us to have Jennifer as part of our conference in the House, we're blessed as Republicans, but Puerto Rico is blessed to have her advocacy and hard work. She is tireless as she works everybody that she can come into contact with to make sure they know what's happening in Puerto Rico and that they care about the people in Puerto Rico. So thank you for all of your work and effort, Jennifer. Thanks for Ripon for putting this on. I'll say Ripon like you guys do instead of Ripon, say Wisconsin, but I appreciate this. And Lloyd, I think we had the second most number of Puerto Ricans after Jennifer in your district, which is great. And Fred Schill, who was here as well, who has, it's interesting, people care about this issue. The number of random and odd places we have conversations about Puerto Rico, and French's background will be a great asset as we kind of think through what the future is for Puerto Rico. And just, I'm going to be quick because I want to get your questions in the conference today, but obviously we have to deal with liquidity issues on the island. We have to deal with Medicaid, we have to deal with electricity, we have to prep up. Those are all big issues that sit on our plate right now. And by the way, it was interesting when we went down that we're in Amgen, some of your people don't have power. 29% of the island has power, the rest doesn't. And so we're rebuilding a distribution system like the old one, so we can get power to people, and then we're going to come back and go, well, now how do we do it the right way? How do we do it in anticipation of the next storm? Which is, I mean, a really hard place for us to be. One priority is you want to get homes electricity, and the other one is we want to be smart with taxpayer money. And those two things aren't actually meeting right now. And I think there's going to be a point where that's going to make some people frustrated and angry at the way this was done, but I don't necessarily see a better way to do it right now. I would note that we have a lot of smart members in the House who care about this issue. And we have a great group of people here who care about this issue from different industry, different perspectives, different viewpoints. This is an opportunity, I think, for us to look at a place that has not been a beacon of light for free enterprise and streamlined regulation and a great home for capital investment. We have an opportunity to rethink what Puerto Rico's future is, and how do we, as Congress, help incentivize growth in Puerto Rico? How do we deal with PREPA? And what leverage do we have to actually extract reform from the Puerto Rican government? And if anyone who invests on the island, I don't know how the permitting process has been for you, but the stories I've heard is it's taking years for people, not just in the municipalities, but then from the island government to actually get approvals to invest. That's a horrible place for capital. And so we have the opportunity to say, we've seen the failure of a big government Democrat experiment. How great is it for us to then go, what can we do in Congress to actually make this a great home for investment and capital? What does free enterprise look like in Puerto Rico? And I think that's the challenge and the opportunity that we have right now in Congress to think through these issues. I would just say the risk I think we face is there's some people in Congress who believe that, oh God, these hurricanes, by the way, I got to work on PROMESA and flood insurance, which no one really cared about until these floods hit, these hurricanes hit, now we care about flood and Puerto Rico. But some want to go, what's the least amount we can do to get this problem off our back? It's now in newspapers, it's now on TV, so what's the least we can do, the least we can spend to get people to forget about it? And I think that's a wrong approach. I think we have to take this opportunity to go, how big can we go? What kind of vision can we have as a Congress to actually do this the right way? And I would just challenge all of you as we think through kind of what's in the realm of possibility. We need partners, we need friends, we need allies, we need to spitball together as a group of people who care about Puerto Rico to get the best and most innovative and creative ideas flowing our way so that we can pick what we think are the best and most politically possible options for us to move forward with. So thank you guys all for coming. I know we'll hopefully have time for questions before the conference, but with that I'll give it over to the great Tom MacArthur, who does not care about flood insurance.
Flood insurance reform.
Thank you, Fred.
Well, good morning. Is this on?
No.
Can I borrow yours? Thank you. If I get out of this chair, I might not get back into it.
That's the reason this is time.
These chairs are a little wobbly when you sit in them. I was reminded during breakfast that the last time I was with you, it was on the eve of healthcare. And that worked out so well that I can't tell you how delighted I am on tax morning. And believe it or not, with all of the debates and discussions and negotiations over the last 2 weeks, today's a little like Christmas. I'm going to conference to find out what we get to open. Some of these things, because Ways and Means has been very guarded about parts of this bill. You know, as Sean said, likewise, I'm very invested in Puerto Rico, very concerned about it. I got involved because I was on the Natural Resource Committee in the last Congress, and Sean had introduced PROMESA to try to deal with their debt crisis, and I got engaged in it. I spent my life as a businessman. I understood a lot of the issues, and I thought maybe that I could help. I used to own a lot of Puerto Rico bonds. I sold them some years ago. And I sold them for all of the reasons that people are concerned about doing business in Puerto Rico. So I look at a set of problems that pre-existed Maria and Irma, but have been greatly exacerbated by these storms. And some new problems have been added, like the issues with the hospitals. And I look at the overall set of issues facing Puerto Rico, and then I look at maybe what could be some long-term solutions. And I think I'll take a moment just to share those with you. I look at an island with 3.5 million people, Americans, 3.5 million Americans, who can leave at will, by the way, you know that, and they do, 1,000 a day right now. Young people who don't see a future, they can get on a plane and go to Florida. And the benefits that they don't get, for example, in Medicaid, if they don't get benefits in Puerto Rico, they land in Florida and they become eligible for many things that they don't get in Puerto Rico. And there's a brain drain going on in this island. That is, first and foremost, what I see as a problem. And if Congress doesn't fix it, it doesn't go away. It just transfers some of that problem to U.S. soil. We need to fix it. First, because they're Americans, they're part of our country. And secondly, because the problems only get worse and more expensive if we delay and don't fix them. The debt problem is a combination of bonds, government bonds that really can't be repaid, and unfunded pension liabilities. It's a total of about $125 billion. That's well above the GDP of Puerto Rico. It's about $35,000 per person, per man, woman, and child. And as people leave, that burden gets higher on those who remain. That is why we had to give them some ability to restructure their debt. They had no legal authority to do it, and we had to give them that authority. There's a fiscal crisis and a business set of issues, and they are separate. The fiscal crisis doesn't imply that Puerto Rico is a lousy place to do business. There's actually a thriving business community in Puerto Rico. Half their economy is manufacturing, as Jennifer said, half. And it's shrunk a lot, but there are thriving businesses. I've visited Amgen's plant there. It's remarkable what they're doing on that island that improves our health day to day. So we have to deal with both of those issues. There is an energy issue and a health issue. And energy has a transmission component, which has been broken by these hurricanes. But there's also a generation issue. I met last week with the executive director, and Natalie, I forget her last name, but she's the executive director of the Growth Commission. And we sat down and I said, boy, do you look familiar. We talked for a while, and then I remembered she was the finance minister in Ukraine a couple of years ago when I visited her. And we talked about energy, and I asked how much of Puerto Rico's energy could they produce on their own, indigenously? You know, combination of solar, wind, a small package plant, other things. And she said studies had suggested that maybe half. That would be a huge step forward for this island, to produce half of their own energy and rely less on really expensive imported sources of energy. So that has to get fixed, and healthcare is a big issue. Jennifer alluded to it. The fact that they're not treated the same as a state in Medicaid, the fact that healthcare is so expensive on the island. These are all some of the problems, and they've all been magnified by Maria. I'll just suggest what I think might be a couple of potential solutions. Number one, with regard to debt, gee, I can't remember who said it, but somebody suggested in the last week or so that maybe all that debt should be forgiven. That is not a good idea. If you totally just eliminate the debt in Puerto Rico, you'll never get investment on the island again. Who's going to buy a bond if the last round of bonds got wiped out? So we have to have an orderly restructuring of debt on Puerto Rico to encourage future investment. The fiscal disciplines they need, Sean alluded to, I think they're underway. The control board is imposing things on them they don't like, but I think together the government of Puerto Rico and the control board can get to some of that. Repatriation of earnings is a big deal. You know, if you're a U.S. company doing business on the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico and you want to bring your capital back home, you're treated like you're bringing it home from Greece or Russia or some other foreign country. This is U.S. soil. And we should have free flow of capital, which would encourage U.S. businesses to do business there. Energy, I've already talked about, getting some local sources. There are things we can do on the tax side that would give a benefit and an advantage of companies that want to do business on the island. I proposed a small pilot bill that would take unemployment dollars and pay companies those unemployment dollars if they hire people. So instead of paying people to stay home, let's pay companies to hire those people. And I think get people to work, give them a reason to stay on the island. Those are some of the issues, a whole bunch of FEMA-related issues, from encouraging SBA loans to not requiring them to pay, Puerto Rico to pay the normal 10%, which they don't have the money to do. There are things we can do to help them there. And I'll drop one thought that's very much in Jennifer's mind, I know, and I think long-term we really need to look at it, and that is, why do we have 3.5 million people in Puerto Rico who are not a state? That, to me, I ran a small company once that was part of AIG. I learned a very important lesson. It was a standalone investment holding. Everything we did was different than the parent, and everything was a pain in the neck for the parent. Everything was. It made it very difficult for them to deal with my little company. We ended up spinning it off. Puerto Rico's sort of like that. Everything has to be rethought, redone, done as an exception. Does the tax code, the way Medicaid is handled, so many issues would actually go away if Puerto Rico were a state. Now, there's issues around that, but there's mostly political issues around that, and they can be solved. Maybe it's phased in over time, the representation. But I think ultimately, and I know you agree, because I've co-sponsored your bill, but I think ultimately we have to consider, why are 3.5 Americans living sort of a second-class existence just off the Florida coast? So those are my thoughts, and in our remaining time, we have a few minutes maybe to take questions, and then we have to go to celebrate Christmas down the block.
Well, I think we had, as you can see, the right members here to talk about Puerto Rico today. I had about 4 questions. I think you addressed almost all of them, and I'm going to really open it up to all of you. I just want to focus on tax reform for 1 second, since I'm wanting to see if everyone's checking their phones for any news that may be coming on. I'm seeing yes, such a big morning. But I think what's been frustrating, and you may share this, is when we go around, there's some kind of belief that if you do something special for Puerto Rico, it becomes this big tax haven where everyone goes down to the island for investment. And a company that's been investing there are so many reasons not to go to Puerto Rico, in terms of the extra cost of energy, in terms of the extra cost of shipping, being prepared for a hurricane. So there needs to be these extra incentives, and it's obvious all manufacturing is not going to go to Puerto Rico. It's the size of Connecticut. It's got, what, 60% is mountainous. You know, it's not going to be over, but right now, with 50% of the economy built on manufacturing, you need to find ways to preserve it. So in the work that you've done, you know, what do you think in terms of how members of Congress are thinking about in terms of tax reform?
I think what Duffy and MacArthur just said, and actually you just say too, we're not competing with the US, we're competing with Singapore, with Ireland, with other countries. So that's a reason we need to have, it's not a safe haven or, you know, it's some kind of a competitive advantage for those countries. Not for the US, for those countries. And to actually maintain all more than 14 manufacturing the pharmaceutical industry that they're actually paying the taxes in the island. Those are good jobs. Those are American jobs. And just to give you an example, our average salary is $18,000. Mississippi is $39,000. And the average in the nation is $52,000. So that can tell you one of the main differences in terms of salaries. 46% of the island is under poverty levels. 46%. Mississippi got 21% under poverty level. So that means a lot. That's the reason we want to be included. Not just the CFC, the domestic companies, manufacturing companies in the island, but also you need to look about what Representative Tom MacArthur just said. I mean, if we can pay taxes, we do pay some, but not all of them. We're looking for the income tax credit, child tax credit, getting people out to work. Those are part of something that should be included in a tax reform. It's an aggressive mode. They're not moving just to Florida. They're moving to Texas, to New York, to the eastern coast of the United States. There are 5.2 million Puerto Ricans in the mainland. 5.2. And 3.4 of that. And if we are losing 1,000 per day, that means that number is going to be down for the next year.
That's a good point. So maybe because we're going to go to Christmas, we can maybe do rapid fire. If you guys have questions, we'll try to do quick questions and quick answers.
Can you talk about the timing for legislation, the next round of legislation?
Well, there's a number of bills that have already been introduced. I think the reason we all have a dumb look on our face is the timing really depends on how committees and leadership processes those, and we're not controlling that. So there have been bills that come out of most of the recommendations of the Growth Commission that Sean and I served on. Most of those have been put into legislative language and introduced. And, you know, they're working their way through a process. I do want to just add one thing to what Jenniffer just said. Think of all the rage about offshoring. Puerto Rico is a perfect opportunity for nearshoring under American rule of law and where we can influence outcomes in a pretty dramatic way. That's what we ought to be thinking about for that island.
I was going to say the sooner the better. The longer we wait, I think the less leverage we have. But obviously we have a lot of things in our plate as well between now and the end of the year. So again, we wasn't quick, but we recognize what challenges we have in the calendar.
In terms of the Natural Resources Committee, there's some draft that we're working on. I don't know when they're going to be approved. The other one is the speaker, and actually with some guys from the leadership to drafting the rest of the recommendations from the report of last December. 70% of them is already being filed. So this is 30% that we're looking for. And we should take advantage of this situation and actually test all the ideas you got for the rest of the mainland. Test it in the island. I mean, you got an island, 3.4 million American citizens. You got a new healthcare program tested in the island. You got new policies in terms of economics tested on the island. And you can see, you can use policy testing, not other kind of testing. I'm not referring to orange agent. But anyway, you can test those ideas on the island, and you can see it right away if they're going to function or not before having them implemented in the states.
Rob Hellman. So you're walking into the briefing here in a few minutes. From what we understand, there are going to be some Puerto Rican provisions in this, but a lot of it's still an open issue, and it's going to be resolved before the markup. So if there's anything you can do, talking to some guy from Wisconsin or a guy from Texas or the gentleman from California that was visiting you, that would be greatly appreciated because it's still in development, and I think Carlos Cabello is not here because he's working on this right now. So anything you can do to help them and him understand the importance of strong tax incentives that keep people in Puerto Rico, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Great point, yeah.
We have only time for one more, Jim, is that right?
One more, and then there's conference.
Thank you so much. I just wonder about your comment regarding the Army Corps of Engineers. Work for hospitals, obviously we're concerned about our hospitals down there, and also about medical supplies back here in the United States. And we're facing an IV shortage here in the United States because of the manufacturing there. And is there anything more they can be doing in the Army Corps of Engineers or other places for the immediate crisis in the next 6 months, dealing with that kind of up in the grid there to get it going?
Yes, and actually, it's in terms of the brigades, they haven't had all the brigades in the island. When Florida was hit, they got 60,000 people working just to recover the power grid. Puerto Rico is just 14,000. And the topography is different. You get flat Florida, and 60% of our island is just one thing. So 60,000 people, 14,000 is going to take. I mean, the governor established 95% of the island to be connected to the power grid on December 15th. And the Corps of Engineers said that we roughly may get to 50. I mean, it's humbling living in that way, without communications, without water, without power. And when you need assistance for living, like, machines or treatments, you are in a constant dire situation. And that's what's still happening there. It is a humanitarian crisis, and we're still, fighting that.
Tom, any further questions? Sean?
I want to reiterate the point that those who care from all these different sectors that are here at breakfast, please participate. Please share the greatest and best thoughts that you have and where you see legislation going, and that's the assistance and the help that we need to get the best product possible. And it's a unified effort with all of us. So please participate and help us out.
And I will be more than able to meet with you and actually discuss those creative ideas, because I think this is a time for all of them.
And good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you all.